Good evening and welcome to the September 26th school board meeting of the Derry Cooperative School District. Let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. With that, we will get started with the approval minutes. It looks like we have the September 12th minutes. I will entertain a motion to accept the September 12th public meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a first by Jason, second by David. Do we have any any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. Now we will move on to Ms. Fitzgerald and an update from the next charter school team.
They have microphones?
So, yeah, I was gonna say maybe lean over to Brenda, or if you guys want, you guys can, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Brenda.
Welcome. I'm back for another year. I'm excited to represent for this year. It's my last year of high school. Over the summer, Next offered a lot of fun activities and even some learning opportunities. Summer Smash is a free program that Next runs. It's funded by the Beyond School Enrichment Grant from the DOE. Students went on field trips, created art projects, played games, and even sampled new foods together. It was a good way to welcome the new students and help out even other students who have trouble putting themselves out there and making some friends. Helps communicate and with communication. Summer Physics with certified teacher Chris Kozura. I'm not sure if that's correct. Sorry if I butchered it. It's a hands-on elective that includes physics and science, and I believe it does gain you a competency. I'm not fully sure. And then competency recovery was also an option for students to choose to come in during school and regain some competencies they didn't earn during this past school year. And then by completing the work that was already started, they earned the competency over the summer. I participated in that. It was really helpful. Got me caught up way better. And then the school year begins. Next kicked it off with the overnight field trip once again. This year they went to the Monadnock State Park, and at 6 a.m. some 16 staff and students woke up to summit the top of Mount Monadnock, which was pretty cool. You can check out the Facebook page to see pictures and more info on it. And then during the whole trip, they went to the beach. They had good team building activities and just had a lot of fun. I believe definitely there was a fire and s'mores and some sticks. And then for the last thing, October 25th, Next is holding a community mental health event where Judge Broderick, I think that's how you say it? Okay. And is coming to tell the story of his family's mental health journey. And then tickets are free, but they have to be reserved in advance. And then apple cider and donuts will be served there at Next. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming back, Stella. We enjoyed having you. It sounds like Next students had a great summer and they're getting back into the swing of things. And I even think I saw them out at the rail trail cleaning up last week.
Yep. Even started community service already.
Yep, so that's always great. I know the Rail Trail Alliance appreciates that. I think the Garden Club of Derry was out there with them as well. So
Yep.
Thank you for doing that, and thanks to everyone at Next for giving back to our community as well. So
Of course.
excited to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
All right. All right. Anthony, we will pass the baton over to you for a Pinkerton Academy update.
Okay. Hey, guys. All right, I'm back. So, yeah, we had Spirit Week this past week. It was very successful, a lot of participation every day, especially on Friday, red and white. I'm wearing blue, I regret that, but as I straighten my tie. Yeah, Mac Plaque, that's been going really good for Pinkerton. We're leading 6-1. We've only lost 1 of the 9 games so far, with I think 2 left, unless there was 1 today. Homecoming was this past Saturday. That was a success, I heard. I had a lot of friends that went. I couldn't, I was busy. Senior corn roast, which I mentioned last meeting, was rescheduled to September 30th because of rain. I think that's this Saturday. Freshman reception is Thursday the 28th. That's a freshman-only dance. It's free, and for many of the freshmen, it's their first big event at Pinkerton. And I believe all the teachers give them a round of applause as they enter, like a big line. So that's a good event for the freshmen. Construction update. We had the ceremonial groundbreaking about a week or 2 ago. All the big players were there, everyone you'd expect. Yeah, construction's going really well. No real big updates since last meeting, but yeah, it's moving along. And the school start time committee is beginning to gather information. For the record, they're not like definitively deciding anything at all yet. They're just collecting information. I believe one of you's the liaison to that. Kearney? I thought so. Okay. Is there anything I missed? I don't think so. Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Anyone else? No? Anthony, thank you for that update. Sounds like, again, Pinkerton's getting off to a quick start. Sounds like there's a lot of exciting events going on. So we look forward to hearing more about those. And we hope that everyone's off to a good start at the school year.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move item number 7, the unreserved fund balance, to right before the restructuring plan.
Okay, so we have a motion by David to move unreserved fund balance from where it is, number 7, to what would be now number 4. And I think part of this is because Ms. Simard may have to leave early, maybe not, but
I second that motion.
all right. So we have a first by David, second by Kearney. Do we have any further discussion? No. I'll just take, can't even think of the right word. Anyways, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. So we will jump to the unreserved fund balance conversation.
Okay, thank you. Just as a note, the chart that was in the original packet, the handout, is the correct one. I noticed the one that was posted online as the attachments was from the last meeting, so this is the correct one, and it's would have been in your packet that would have been handed out to you. So what I did differently in the spreadsheet is sort of take back some of the confusion of putting in the adequacy, the increase in adequacy, because when you voted to retain those, to put those to offset taxes, the taxes that it would offset would be from the end of 2024 going into the next fiscal year. So what we were looking for, and the vote that you'd need to make, is strictly how much you want to retain of the 22-23 unreserved funds, retain them for the 23-24 year. And what I did is put in the budgeted expenditures, all of the revenues, which would include your general fund and your adequate education, and we just put the original number because I just wanted to compare so you could see to what we had originally estimated, and the state education, and then show you what the ending balance of the unreserved funds were at the end of June 30th, 2023. You now have to subtract the 1.8 million because that's what was voted in March of 2023. And when I looked at revising our revenues coming up when I do tax rate setting, and I looked at the interest, I mentioned this at the last board meeting, our interest rates are much higher. We're receiving a lot more interest, more so than I had budgeted. So if I'm looking at adding some more revenue of 100,000 in any one of those scenarios, and at the last board meeting, I also talked about and Laura talked about the revised estimated special ed aid, which is an increase over what we had budgeted. However, we typically would not, even when I do revised revenues, I don't put in the full amount that the state may anticipate getting, because they could always hold back. You don't necessarily always get what they're anticipating. So you may want to adjust some of that 825 and not anticipate so much revenue. But I did, various options that were similar to what we've done in the past. And keep in mind that when we were doing budget setting last year, we had used a $3 million unreserved fund as a placeholder. And in doing so, you can just see what the tax impact or what your tax rate would be on any one of these scenarios. So whether you only reserve 200,000, 4, 6, or 8, or you can do any combination of those. And again, just keep in mind whether we really want to fully estimate the revenue for special ed aid. And then I would open up for discussion. Keep in mind also, I believe the assessed valuation has changed slightly, and it will probably change prior to tax rate setting from the original assessed valuation that we use. So everybody just needs to keep in mind that the numbers that I have on there would not be the actual tax rate or tax impact, because if the assessed valuation changes, it changes my formulas.
All right, thank you, Jane. Does anyone from the board have questions for Jane regarding any of the stuff that you're looking at?
So Jane, the 825,000, you said that was estimated. That's not the total amount, or is that the total amount?
We had already budgeted, I believe, 600,000 in special ed aid. So this is the difference of an increase that the state is estimating. And when they put out their estimate, and when I'm doing tax rate setting, the state will call me and say, particularly with special ed aid, this is the percent that you can estimate or use for your estimate. Typically, nobody puts in the full allocation because you don't want to come up short, because you don't know if they're going to give it all to you. So my recommendation would not to be to use the full 825. I would compromise a little bit on that one.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify for anybody that might misunderstand. I know that frequently when we talk about these, we talk about the amount of money that's going to be returned to taxpayers. Make no mistake, it sounds like it's going to be Christmas in September here. But that's not the case. The situation is that money is going to go into the budget. It's going to be spent. It's just that we're not going to have to raise as much money from the tax on the tax base, so that's going to be reflected upon a reduction, or I shouldn't say a reduction, but a not as big a tax increase in the rate. So no one is going to be getting it checked or having something returned. I think most people are aware of that, but there may be some people who aren't, and I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Jane, I know you said you would revise the revised estimated special ed aid. I guess what is a number that you would feel comfortable with? Is that, going down to, 700,000, or is that going, is it just, 800,000? What, I guess, would you suggest as a fair number for that?
I would feel comfortable at 700,000. Mm-hmm. And I would also, I'm a big proponent for putting funds in our retained fund balance, and I would recommend retaining 800,000.
Thank you. That was going to be another question I would have.
Yep. I'm just curious if there was average of what you've seen the state cut from that original estimate? Is there like, they normally cut it 3% from what they originally say? Is there any kind of,
I mean, a lot of times when they're telling you how much the lowest that you can budget for it is, sometimes it's 57%, sometimes 67%. They allow you to do that just because you don't know if you're going to get it all. So sometimes we've gotten it all and sometimes we haven't.
Okay.
You know, obviously Laura and all the staff that work, any services related to special education, anybody who has any contributing to that, work really hard to recoup as much money as possible. So they did a really good job getting a high number there, and we're hoping we get it all. I would rather we get it all, and say we do get it all at the 825, we would just have that money left over at the end of the school year. I wouldn't spend it, but I feel like it's a little bit of a buffer just in case.
thank you.
And then Jane, at the end of the school year, if that was the case, we would then make have the decision to return it back to the taxpayers or keep it in the budget for next year, correct?
Yes, you would, yeah, as an unreserved fund balance, yep.
Any other comments, questions from the board? I would entertain a motion, as we do need to have a decision on this tonight, and we've been talking about it the last couple meetings, so if somebody wants to make a motion, otherwise, you know, I can make a motion as well.
Move to accept option 4 in the amount of 800,000, based on Jane's recommendation to retain the full amount.
Right, so we have a motion by Jason to retain the $800,000. I guess the only clarifying question I would have is, would you want to change the special ed estimate as well, or would we keep that at the same as 825?
I would keep it at the 825.
Okay. So we have a motion by Jason to keep the estimated special ed at 825 and change the retained fund for $800,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Kearney. I'll open the floor for discussion. Brenda?
So, did I misunderstand Jane when did she say to retain it's on. Did I misunderstand Jane? Special ed funds, did you say to retain 700 of that, or all of it? Maybe I misunderstood you, I just want to clarify.
Sure. So the special ed aid, so I just want to clarify some of the language. It wouldn't be retaining, it's just how much I'm estimating during tax rate. And I was saying, recommending that maybe we would only increase our anticipated revenues for special ed aid by 700,000 and not the full 825 in case we don't get our full allocation. Yep.
Can I amend then? I'll amend my
Absolutely.
motion for the 700,000. So option 4 for 800,000 and then
Reduce the
reduce to
revised.
700,000 by 125,983.76.
All right, so we now have an amended motion by Jason to retain $800,000 and reduce the revised estimated special ed aid down to $700,000.
I will second that one as well.
So Kearney with the second. I'll reopen the discussion. That was gonna be my question is, Jason, would you consider amending it? You did that, so I appreciate that. I don't really have any other points to make on that. Anyone else? I would do a roll call vote, but I feel like we have a pretty good consensus, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Now that I have the number, I will plug that into the DOE 25. So I'll have it at the office. I'll check to see who's got meetings in the building this week, but our extension only went to the 30th. So I'll just need to, if you don't have meetings, I may call you to see if you can do a stop by. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jane. With that, we will move on to the restructuring plan. Before I pass it over to Joe, I am going to make a motion to ratify the Davis Demographics contract that was discussed a few months back. There was questions about it at the last meeting, and so my motion is to ratify that based off of conversations I had with Austin, and he spoke to our lawyer, and she said that even though it's within policy, you can go back and ratify even if it's after the fact. So just to be even more assured, my motion is to ratify the Davis Demographics contract regarding the restructuring plan. I believe that was for $20,000. So I have a first by the chair. Is there any second?
Second.
Second by Jason. I'll open the conversation for any other discussion. Seeing none. All right, well, and I'll ask for another vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Brenda? Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. All right, Joe, with that, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you. So just to give you a quick update, I think we'll pull up the website to make sure that everybody knows where to go, because some people have had some questions, and Cliff's done a really great job at building this website. So on the Derry School District's website, there's a big, cool puzzle picture on the main page that brings you to this page, which is the district restructuring information page. You can also get there on the menu. It's labeled. And here is a good one-stop shopping for a lot of the updates regarding the restructuring plan. Really, the piece that we are engaged in right now is the elementary redistricting process of rezoning our elementary zones from 5 elementary zones to 4. So as you just voted on and we've discussed, we've contracted with Davis Demographics. They have worked with us several times in the past, and we held a couple of sessions 2 weeks ago, first to get some input from administration, and then to bring in some stakeholders, including members of sort of town officials, parents, teachers, board members, and other administrators. And through that process, we developed 3 potential scenarios, and those maps are accessible on our website. So underneath the section that says elementary redistricting information, there's a link that says to see the proposed zones. Click here, and it'll bring you to a website that Cliff's got going up right now. And really, just to make sure people are feeling comfortable with this website, the 3 scenarios are color-coded. So there's a blue, I think it's orange and pink scenario. And you can toggle between the 3 different scenarios at the bottom of the map. There are 3 buttons. Once you're in a map, so like Cliff is in the blue map right now, up on the top right-hand side, there's a little search icon. If you want to plug in a street address, you can click on that, and you can punch in your street address, and it'll show you where that falls in this specific scenario. There are lots of colors here, so we encourage people to take your time. A little trick I've noticed is sometimes it helps to zoom out, because sometimes you might click in and you get so deep in there, it's really difficult to tell where you're at, so you kind of have to move in and out, and hopefully you'll be able to do that. Just a little bit here, this is actually a great view, Cliff. So there are 4 icons on the screen that look like little school buildings. Those are the locations of the 4 remaining elementary schools. The text around them is connected to that school. If you look, I think the Grinnell Elementary School one can be a little confusing because it's like right on top of some of that pink South Range area, and that's just because of the way the map is zoomed in. The text looks like it's almost in a different place than where the building is. I just encourage people, just know that that text is just floating text that's attached to that icon. What the 3 scenarios that we have here, what they do is they redistrict the Derry Village population among those 4 remaining schools. and they don't move any existing students and families that are enrolled in one of the 4 remaining schools. They don't redistrict those students to another school. What's really important that we want to make sure everybody knows is that we're looking for feedback. So these maps will be up for a period of time, and the board can decide, I guess, how long they want them up. I think it makes sense to give people some time to look at them, especially after this meeting. And as Cliff is pointing to, right below the click here to see the zones is a click here to give us input button, and this is it's a Google form. It is anonymous. So it's not going to share your email address, which is important. So some people have asked very specific questions in here, and we're going to take those questions and try to address some of them on our frequently asked questions page, but we don't have the ability to track you down and answer you directly because it's an anonymous survey. But you can give us feedback. You can also ask questions. Just as a heads up, when you're done typing in your comment and or questions, you got to make sure you go and hit submit, and you kind of have to do it twice because we're giving you the option to go back and look at your stuff and add both a question and a comment. So just make sure you pay attention and hit that submit button twice, so then you'll get a little, Cliff will show you, you'll get a little message that says, after you hit submit, it'll ask you, are you ready to submit? And then you hit it again, and then it'll say, thank you for giving us feedback. So earlier today, we had already received right around 40 or so this morning submissions. Some families have reached out directly, and I've ensured that their feedback gets put into this system so that when we sit down and want to look at everything all together, we don't lose sight of anybody's in particular, their comments. In our project plan, we had planned on having the board make a decision about the zones during October. I mean, the plan it says October, so I think the board needs to decide if you want to make that decision at the first October meeting or the second October meeting. But obviously we want to get input from people and kind of analyze that and see if we need to make any adjustments to any of those scenarios, if there's another idea that comes up. Does anybody from the board have any questions about the rezoning process with Davis?
I do. I have a couple. I was wondering if on that map, when you're cutting turf, that's what I would call it, but you're cutting your districts, is there a way to see the bus routes that are already in place as well as the population density while you're doing those districts?
No.
There you go.
We cannot do the bus routes. It's hard enough to do the bus routes already. I haven't been able to get them.
Yeah, I get it. But that would be cool.
But the density piece, we do have a density map that I think is up in one of the presentations that Lauren provided, which was eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people. I grew up in this town, but I think for people that were curious, hey, why do our districts look the way they are? Why is East Derry so geographically big? Yeah. It's because the people are really spread out in East Derry, and they're much, much more densely populated on the western side of our town, which means our schools geographically. The borders don't perfectly align with where they are because we got to make sure that, we don't want to put one school of 1,000 kids in a school of, 200 kids. So we do have those density maps that are available up there.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. And then I was curious if we would be able to get a list of some of those frequently asked questions as well as that posted up on the website. So if we're seeing some returning questions through that survey, if we can just even do a one-pager that we could share out to parents, or just once we start getting a feel for what the main questions are, then we can start kind of working with that a little bit more, but will the board be able to see what those questions are?
Yeah, so there already is a frequently asked questions section of this page. It doesn't yet have all the new questions that have been coming in over the last few days because this site's only been up since Friday. But we will add, so Cliff's on it right now, we will add to this list.
Yeah, I can see that.
In terms of reviewing the feedback, I think maybe the board needs to decide if they want to do that in a subcommittee meeting, perhaps, and that's at your discretion. It's the nice thing about Google is it'll all be collected and we can organize it in any way you all want.
I just think it's productive to actually take and utilize what people are putting in and saying and being able to base what we're doing off of that. So, yeah, that's all the questions I had on that. Thank you. This looks great, by the way.
I just want to say, looking at these maps, it gives me a new appreciation for when I hear the news and I hear about them having to draw new congressional districts. But prior to the redistricting, I always wondered anyhow, on a map, it looks like it makes perfect sense to draw a line of division down the middle of a street. But in reality, it makes more sense, I think, and you can, someone can educate me if I'm wrong, to go to the property line so that the streets remain together, and that's both sides of the street for a couple of reasons, one of which is financial as far as transportation costs are concerned. If we have buses that are going down the same street to pick up people on one side and then another bus to the other side, that seems to me it's repetitive and it's not efficient. That's one of the issues. The other issue is the commonality of the people that are in neighborhoods together, is keeping the same group of people in the same schools so that we can replicate to the extent that we have right now the sense of the school and the belonging to the neighborhood. And I understand the density issue, and sometimes you have to make a little loop and go around and grab a couple of other students so you even things out. And I understand there's also no perfect plan. So those are just a couple of my pieces of input. With respect to the divisions going down the middle of a street, you know, main thoroughfares, East Broadway, for instance, and things like that, that's a different story altogether. It's a main thoroughfare, it's heavily traveled. But I'm talking about some of the, you know, the neighborhoods and the developments and things like that, and what I'm referring to specifically. So that was just my input. Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, if I could just follow up, because I think you brought up really great points, and for the community to know, one of the benefits of working with a company like Davis Demographics is they do this for a living. So they came prepared. They had already broken our town down into hundreds of study areas. So they had really data analysts going through our town maps and looking at those very questions you were asking about: where do neighborhoods, where do property lines touch? But they also go in and they look at, you know, on a map, it might look like a property line touches another, these two properties touch each other. There also may be a forest in between them, and the property line is in the middle of the woods. So they came prepared with some of that. Now, mistakes can be made, which is actually, I think, while we're crowdsourcing a lot of this to the public, is they may see things that they get missed, or you know, we want to take a careful look at. So that was a good piece of it. And they did come prepared with you know, looking at the ways in which, you know, Lauren, the consultant, actually, it was great that Cliff was there to talk about transportation, because there were certain neighborhoods where there's only one way in and one way out, right? So you know which way the bus is going to go in to get those kids, and now you got to be strategic about, well, on the way there, they should obviously get these kids. So everything you mentioned were things that we talked about in those meetings. Yeah.
If I may, you brought something up. Could you address I believe they said they weren't taking in consideration the new school into this. And I just am curious on why would we want to do this twice once we do approve getting the new school built. Why would we want to come back and redo this process of redistricting then, rather than trying to plan that out now? We know where the school's going to be. We know what the capacity of the school is going to hold. Why not just redistrict with that in mind?
I'm not sure if I understand exactly how to do that without the school present. So one of the challenges is we need to move the entire population of Derry Village. And I know that, you know, perhaps, I'm not sure what you're asking. If you're asking, could we move, because in order to, if we build that new school, would we
How much
propose
is it going to look
closing?
different once we get the new school? Is it going to be this big dramatic change for the community again, where they're all getting redistricted again?
It's difficult to know for sure. I think that the Derry Village, proposed location of a new school at Derry Village is geographically pretty close to South Range, because that was brought up in one of our meetings, that right now we have South Range, Grinnell, and Derry Village, 3 elementary schools that are geographically kind of on top of each other. So it is possible, I want to be really careful not to get too far ahead of myself to say, it is possible that so the board has to decide on the size of the new school, so that's part of it.
So I'm just worried that we're not taking the most strategic, long-term approach to this. I get it, we're in the situation now that we closed Derry Village and we have to send these kids, but like, I do want to make sure that we're still in line with where we hope we're going to be, and not have to do this all over again and put these parents through this all over again. It's like, can we take a breath and make sure that we're doing this the right way before we make any decisions? And that's just what I want to make sure is said.
I had a couple of things. I mean, first, I wanted to say that, you know, these 3 examples, the final map is not going to be exactly one of these 3 examples. You know, we're going to take all of the public comment that's being collected, and, you know, we're going to make adjustments, you know, based on that public comment. And the other thing that I kind of wanted to address is from the boundary planning meeting, there was a purple and gold map that was included in the materials, and I know it's been going around, so I was wondering if you could just speak to why those maps were produced.
Sure. So I'll be honest, I can't remember the difference between, I can't remember which one was purple, which one was gold, but I know both of them in my head, what they were. So one of them was what I can only describe as a thought experiment that was brought up in one of the planning sessions, where some individuals said, what if we divided the town into quadrants using bypass 28 and Route
purple.
102? Is that purple?
Yeah.
Okay. And having grown up here, I knew that was a fool's errand. I wasn't going to out you, Cliff, but Lauren partly created that map to just illustrate the population density issues that we have in our town. I think most people who live here, we kind of think of the traffic circle as the center point of town, and bypass 28 and 102 is the sort of equator and prime meridian of our town. It doesn't actually work like that. As you can see the map, the east side of bypass 28 is way bigger than the west side. The west side does have the highest concentration of people. So there were a couple of challenges with that purple map. It would have created a super overcrowding in at least one of our schools, because it wouldn't have taken into consideration the actual where people live. But we shared that, Lauren shared that because he wanted people to understand the population density areas. The gold map was a map that I saw for the first time on that Thursday afternoon because we had never discussed it. In fact, we had talked about how it wasn't an option, but Lauren shared it because he wanted to illustrate that, sort of getting to what I think Paul was talking about the challenges of drawing districts. There's a button you can press that says, just send kids to the geographically closest school, and basically redraw all boundaries in the town. So ignore all existing boundaries. And that would have resulted in a much larger percentage of our families being redistricted to a new school.
Quite a bit of upheaval.
And another challenge is that our town, as you guys see, it's spread out differently. It's not evenly distributed space. Also, we have to take into account, or we try to take into account equity issues. So we are careful to try not to have one school or one or two schools have a high concentration of students on free and reduced lunch. Now, technically, that's really hard to know because that information is confidential. But once we draw the lines, we know, because we have to report that information to the state and the feds. So basically, throwing away all boundaries and then just using a geocode sort of way to draw boundaries would place us in a really precarious position where it is likely to create some poverty-dense schools and some very affluent schools. So that's another factor to consider. I know that it's considered in elections with the drawing of boundaries, lots of things. So we just wanted to be careful. So that was the gold map that Lauren drew.
Yeah. I also want to address too, on the point of the new school. I mean, you figure that the new school and the school that it replaces are not going to be the same capacity. So when the new school opens, you're at the very least going to have to make minor adjustments to the district to balance the capacities there. So like, for example, on the blue scenario, the Derry Village site is across the street from the South Range zone. So, you'll need to make adjustments when the new school opens, but you can definitely do them in a way where they impact the fewest number of people possible.
In terms of other restructuring, I don't have really any other, I feel like it's my job to always make sure we try to keep the project plan updated. That's linked onto the website, so we've updated that just a little bit. I know I shared this last time. We are in the process of working with our teachers union around all of the effects of this change, so that's been going great. We've had our first meeting, and we're working with them on the process of assigning staff. So we've made some good progress there. The goal is really to, as soon as possible, assign teachers and other groups of staff to their new locations. So it's not done yet, but it is well underway.
So Joe, I have one question. You had said that the board would need to make a decision at some point in October, be it the first or the second meeting. Are we safe to assume that the administration will put together what they think is a best fit for the restructuring, the redistricting to bring to us as a recommendation? Or is there going to be multiple options to pick, or will that kind of be flushed out prior to?
I think we could take direction from you guys if you want us to bring just one proposal and why we think it's the best fit with a series of sort of justifications or rationale. Without getting, and I can answer specific questions, or we can do it in subcommittee as we're looking at feedback from people. There are pros and cons to each of these maps. Each map accomplishes something and causes another problem, right? So I think we probably want to understand from the board's perspectives, what are the highest priorities in terms of pieces, whether that be geographic, keeping kids as close as possible, whether that be around really keeping certain neighborhoods together. The school district, as certainly Brenda will remember, has redistricted in the past. So we also know that there are certain neighborhoods that go to one school right now, but several years ago they went to a different school. And if that needs to be something that we consider as well, that's, because there are certain neighborhoods where, depending on which color you pick, they go to, they might go to Barco or they might go to East Derry. And those are communities that historically may have in the past gone to East Derry, but now they go to Barca, now they go to Derry Village, but in one map they would go to Barca. So those are all things we would want to talk with board members and really evaluate the feedback from the community. So I could see it going either way, where we come with one specific recommendation, here's why we think this is the best fit, or here are some tweaked options and pros and cons of this one, pros and cons of this one, and we'd like you guys to kind of weigh those things. I'd be open to recommending either one.
Do you want to schedule some sort of boundary planning workshop? Like, when do you expect that you would be able to present us with a map?
Yeah, I think that we're certainly happy to review all the feedback from people and present that in sort of summary form, but we're also comfortable having members of the board, if they want to pour over the feedback and be a workshop session. I guess that's up to you guys, how you'd like to do that.
I mean, I would think that we probably, at least in the scope of today's meeting, would want to kind of set an end date as to when feedback will come in. That way, at least feedback's in, you guys kind of do your thing, we workshop, and then maybe towards the second meeting in October. But it probably would make sense to know that feedback closes by the end of the first week of October or something, just to kind of give everybody enough time if they still want to provide feedback, but certainly give you all enough time to compile the feedback, flush out what it says, and then put the plans into place. I mean, for me, the big thing is just, like Paul said, kind of piggyback, is not splitting a neighborhood. So, you know, my kid goes to a different school from the friend across the street or something like that. I mean, they're going to be moving through schools together, which is ideal, but certainly, you know, neighborhood kids should be in the same school.
Yeah, and if we're talking timeline, I can give you some ideas.
Please.
I don't think we have a need to work on this week. I think it makes sense to give people this week to get on there and look at it. I think the earliest that we would want to sit down as an administrative team and really start building reports and looking at things would be next week. So just to use your date of beginning of October, I think October starts next week. So, you know, keeping it open through Sunday night, October 1st, and then closing the survey Monday or you know, at midnight or something on Sunday night, so that when we come in Monday morning, we can start working on it. You know, there is diminishing, you know, typically when you send a survey out, you get most of your results the first few days. However, I'm hoping this meeting boosts some more results, you know, feedback from people, but then it will probably dissipate over the next 3 or 4 days. And then by the weekend, I'm not sure we're going to be getting a ton more, but you guys can let us know. I think that's reasonable to have it go through Sunday, but I'm open.
Yeah, and I think if Cliff pulses something out coming out of this meeting, I mean, to me, it makes sense, but just one.
Yeah, especially if we set a date to close it, you know, get it up on the website, parent square messages, all that stuff.
I have a question. So when you did these maps, is there a dot in each map that represents a child?
Yes.
So how did you do that without the enrollment study?
So we used current enrollment.
So the enrollment study could change it all. I mean, it's maybe won't change it drastically, but it could change it, correct?
Yeah.
We have that information, do we know?
Do we know when the enrollment study will be done? I don't think we have that information. We did talk with Lauren about this process, and that was, you know, a question of, you know, what are our numbers going to look like in 10 years or 5 years? It's really hard to know for sure. The trends, I mean, he led us to believe that based on all the data that he's looked at, there are not many changes on the horizon in terms of spikes in any neighborhoods. I know that we talked with George Soros, who was at the meeting, who sort of reiterated the same thing. But yeah, you're right. We haven't completed the long-term or the future demographic study yet.
Because I feel like we put the cart before the horse. We have an enrollment study to direct us to where our students are and will be, and then we're going to move them without having that information. When we built Barca, that is when we redistricted, but we had the enrollment study first, and we had a plan because we had a new school to move students around to. Thank you.
So I'm looking at this timeline, just thinking about when we can close the feedback. I also know that at the Davis Demographics meeting, we talked about having feedback open, you know, for a few weeks, and just looking at the time for when our meetings are. We have one on October 10th, October 24th, and just thinking about if we were to do a subcommittee where we convene between those times. And also thinking about, you know, like you said, Joe, there's diminishing returns, but making sure that, you know, we've contacted, I think there was an idea thrown out there that, whenever a school newsletter goes out, there's a QR code, or having the PTAs also notify their members in addition to, I know we did Parent Square as well, so that's another form where even as a community member, if you're watching tonight, you do not have a student in school, you can still go to Parent Square and sign up for notifications regarding the restructuring, which will also give you any updates, but also you can see these maps there as well. So again, just another disclaimer, hey, please give us your feedback and help us with that. But I'm thinking, if we have an opportunity to meet, between that October 10th and 24th meeting, or not we, but you as the administration and whoever's part of that subcommittee, would, you guys would be able to gather all that information, have a conversation, and then from there, hopefully, we provide you guys with the direction that you would need, right? To either have, if the direction is, hey, we want one really well thought out plan, or a couple different options that are give us kind of a couple different benefits, and maybe there might be some drawbacks to them. So seeing what that feedback is. So I'm comfortable with maybe leaving it open for, a couple more weeks so that, we do have other groups and, people that can continue to get the word out. But that's just my 2 cents. I think, with regards to this redistricting and, there's a lot of things that are unanswered. And, that is just, the reality of the situation is that we do have a lot of questions that aren't answered due to, we have, as a board, voted to move forward with a new school. And so if that were to get passed, or if it doesn't get passed, we're still going to be closing, or we're still closing Derry Village, and, we're only going to have 4 elementary schools next year. And then should a new school be in the making, for 3 or 4 years down the road, if it gets approved, then, that is a potential scenario that we would have to face. And I think, no matter what scenario we come out of this, I think we all need to be realistic with each other that there is probably going to be a few, and hopefully we try to limit the impacts on the families in town, and that, that's our job, is to try to limit that. But our job is also to create the best educational opportunities for the entire district. So balancing that is not always easy, but those are decisions that, we on the board and as part of the administration do need to make. So I think, being cognizant of that, being, flexible with this, with the realistic scenario that we are facing, and, understanding that we are all trying to do what's best for the district, and we will always be open and listen to feedback and have conversations. I think that's important as well. So this whole process is not easy. So we certainly ask for patience, and we hope that we get that. And we hope that, we're able to turn around a plan that is feasible and gets accepted by, an overwhelming majority of the community members as well, because we understand that that's important, not just for this restructuring, but for the potential of a new school and whatever else may come down the road as well. So please ask for your patience and your grace, and as much feedback as you can give us. I really appreciate. I am pleasantly surprised that we've had over 40 submissions already without having a ton of, we haven't had a meeting to announce this. And so seeing it going on Parent Square and through some of the schools, I appreciate that. So please continue to give us your feedback. I know before Joe's message went out on Friday, I had received emails, so I appreciate that. I have tried to explain to everybody. If I will certainly forward that feedback on. If you want to do it again, please go to this website and submit it. It's certainly not going to hurt having the same feedback, because I'm sure other people will probably have that feedback as well. But as far as timeline, I would say, if we can maybe wrap up feedback, maybe in that early-ish to mid-October timeframe, and then we meet mid-October, and then hopefully by the end of October, we're able to present a plan that, the board is comfortable with. It would be my preference. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
I would be comfortable with that timeline.
Yeah, I have no problem leaving the, frequently asked questions open to mid-May. What I wouldn't advise is, let's let the administration do their job. I don't think we need to have a workshop. Let's let them do their work. You guys had you have subcommittee meetings. Let's let them do their work. As you know, we're all inundated with committee meetings to the extent of 3 to 4 times a week, most of us. These guys are in almost every single meeting. So that's my thought is, let's see what they come up with, and we can discuss it in the 24th. And then if we need more time, we can figure that out. But that's my feedback for that. Let these guys do their work and then present to us when the timing is right.
Do you feel there's a need to give people the date right now? I know, Jason, you kind of mentioned that, or somebody mentioned, like, let's make sure people know when it's open till, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's Sunday or the following Sunday, or
Columbus
to
Day
Jonathan's
weekend is the
point-
weekend of the 7th, 8th, and 9th is Monday, Indigenous Peoples' Day, or Columbus Day, depending on how you refer to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that gets us to right up to our next meeting on the 10th. We wouldn't have anything for you on the 10th if we keep it open through that, but we could start analyzing data beginning on Tuesday the 10th, and that'll give us 2 weeks to analyze, put together a presentation for you all for the 24th.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with David. I think one thing I'd like to see is maybe, here's what we recommend, and then here's a second option, should you not be happy with option one. Just as that way, everything's not all in on one plan, and if the board says, hey, scrap this, or let's take a look at this, then you're going back and having to redraw. It might be option one and then option two with your recommendation for what you think should be the plan to move forward. My thought.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Again, at the end of the day, we shouldn't trust the administration to, make these types of decisions and not leave it up to, just the 7 of us that, are not experts in educational matters. So I'm in line with that thinking as well. My one last maybe request is maybe we do leave it open, we leave feedback open until October 11th, just so that we have one more opportunity to tell the public. Say at the October 10th meeting, hey, last chance, please provide feedback if you haven't already. And that's, I know, one less day for the administration, but hopefully that would still give you guys enough time. Okay.
And I completely agree. I just feel like my main point is making sure that we use that data that we're getting from the survey to then use in updating those frequently asked questions. And I just want to make sure that step is also being implemented. And I trust you guys, I know that you will. But that's kind of where that kind of branched from. But I'm good with that process as long as we're following up on those questions.
All right. Well, anyone else have any questions for Joe regarding the restructuring plan?
Thanks for all the work to everybody who's doing all this. It's a tall task, so appreciate it.
All right. Well, Joe, appreciate it. I will move on to the next topic on the agenda, which is a facilities discussion. I don't know if the administration has any updates to share. If you do, please share those. If not, I would actually pass it over to the members of the facilities subcommittee for any updates that you guys have. So does the administration have anything tonight? Nope. Okay. So Jason, Michael, David?
Yeah, so Facilities Committee met with LaValle Brensinger last week. Jay from LaValle had kind of initial concepts for a floor plan and layout that they brought to us with some adjustments based on the K4 model instead of K through 5, which is what we previously had. We talked about capacity at 550 students, which gives us the capacity that's needed to absorb the schools that they'd be replacing. And here, they're pretty aggressive, so they're working hard to get the layout finalized for us for next week when we meet with him again. And then the expectation is that they will have the preliminary site layout within a few weeks after that, and then we can expect exterior elevations and 3D rendering shortly thereafter. So We were a little bit behind on our project plan, on the strategic plan for this with the timelines, but I think over the last couple of weeks, we've kind of closed that gap a bit, and Jay's very confident that he is where he needs to be and can deliver on their deliverables for us. So more to come on that. I think everybody will be excited. I know I'm excited to kind of see renderings and things really come to life, but looking forward to sharing that out as LaValle brings that to the committee. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board for the facilities subcommittee? Or Michael or David, anything you guys want to add as well? I have a question. Actually, a few questions. So I know you guys talked about capacity, floor plans, models. Have we looked at or has there been any cost considerations given for what that potential K-4 school would look like?
So Jay brought some figures to the meeting Friday, and the big figure was kind of where the last year's estimate, how it translated into 2023 figures. So just based on the K-5, what we had in place last year, the plan that was for the elementary school last year, that was right at 75 million. In this year's numbers, based on Jobin, was 83, 82, 81. So basically, it was an increase just year over year cost, obviously, materials, labor, et cetera. They are confident in the model that we won't be at that 81. And we've the facilities committee has given pretty clear direction that we need to be under the 75 million. That's kind of what we're hoping to see. He had some pretty good layouts already in place with a 2-story model, and it seems to be that it will work really perfectly with the K-4 plan and kind of keeping everything central, but with a lot of open spaces and windows in every classroom and natural light and things like that. But we were pretty clear in our expectations that this was not going to be, the Taj Mahal of elementary schools with no expense spared and just the whole kit and caboodle. I think everybody, and us included, are very cost sensitive and understanding a project of this nature and the magnitude and the impact that it will have. So we've been very upfront and very transparent in what our needs are and what the needs of the community are. Jay has been great to work with, open to all feedback, very communicative, everything's above board, well prepared. I know he will be at an upcoming meeting very soon to kind of deliver and present sort of where they are, but I can't stress enough that we have kind of laid it on the table with regards to cost and our expectations and where things need to be. So kind of a roundabout way to answer that, John, but more to come. And I think, we're confident that we'll be where we need to be.
All right, so more than $0, less than $81 million?
That's correct.
Thank you. As far as the kind of the next, or I guess the other kind of piece to, facilities, right, is, I know we talked about applying funds towards, the rest of the facilities. I don't think we've started diving into that in too much detail yet. So just kind of wondering what the time frame for when we should start hearing more about that, and kind of what some of those things are looking at, or maybe what's being done now to start preparing for those things.
So I know Jane and team, along with Jeremy and Rob have kind of started the process of putting together one-pagers for us with regards to existing facilities. So what the spend has been over the last 12 to 18 months, what they see as critical need, and this really all it just dovetails what was in the Jobin reports and some of the other reports, but the expectation, and I know Jane's fleshing out what has been done against some of those reports, We will be meeting, we're not going to have a facilities committee meeting this week. We've shared, the committee has shared our feedback on the one-pager with both Rob and Jeremy as to what we'd like to see added. But I would assume, and Jane, I think we can probably start to button this up by our next committee meeting and really kind of have, the hope was that when we kind of looked at the total dollar amount, that we'd have to understand sort of what the new school was going to look like to then understand where we would be from an investment at the existing buildings. So hopefully, you know, along with the estimates, I think once Jay gets layout squared away and Jobin can kind of give us a better baseline, like a hardline number, once that's squared away, then Jane can and team can button up specific spends related to the remaining buildings.
Okay, appreciate that.
So when Jason talked about one-pagers, the last meeting we had asked Jeremy and Rob to start creating summary-level items for the website for, you know, high-level summary for everything, then for each individual school as well. So we had them start off with the high-level summary overall and pick one school for now, and then we would meet next week to kind of, you know, edit it, beat it up, and get it to a version that we can, you know, present here and then put it on the website. And then, so that's when we talk about the one-pagers, it's really building out the website, and that's been the primary kind of, you know, on top of talking with Jay at La Valley and dealing with the whole process that it takes to get all that and renderings and everything that needs to be done, you know, we're trying to build out that website as well. And then, you know, and together with that is is to do what you're asking is high priority as well, because, you know, obviously, if we're gonna have two separate warrant articles, everything needs to be fleshed out and really detailed out. So that's definitely in the works. We meet bi-weekly. You know, we're meeting pretty regularly. We met last Friday and we meet again next Friday. So a lot of work, but we'll get there, and it's just gotta get there.
Sure.
I think it'll be part of too, you know, where obviously we have our first strategic plan committee meeting on Friday, and I think, you know, part of that is going to be the long-term plan for our facilities as well.
Yep, absolutely. The other question I have is regarding kind of communication about, you know, these changes that we're making, and, you know, obviously, as we are getting closer to December and we start thinking about specifying what exactly the warrant articles will look like, and the education or the communication piece around that as well. I guess, how is that looking, or, I mean, any updates on that?
So what I would say is right now we're focusing on the dedicated website for facilities. And I would say we haven't discussed what the boots on the ground look like yet and how that will work out. You know, obviously we discussed with Austin as him playing a key role in this process as well, and getting out there within the schools, within PTAs, within the town. So he'll help us out with that. Obviously that we'll get more details surrounded with that. But I think once we flesh out the website and get everything we need to do built there, we'll talk about next steps and getting everyone on the board involved, getting people in the administration involved, and what that looks like. So it's I think the website it's the big piece, and once that gets done, I think it's relatively, I wouldn't call it easy, nothing's easy, but it's not as cumbersome as what we're trying to get done now.
Yeah, I think as I'm thinking about this, right, you guys talk about the website, you talk about these one-pagers, right? It's kind of building a repository of information for us that we can reference when we're having conversations, that, you know, people in the or within the district have questions they can easily reference. You know, I really appreciate the website that is for the restructuring. Cliff, I think you've been leading the way on that, so that's been very helpful and beneficial for me. It is literally a one-stop shop for anything restructuring. So I know when I find myself answering emails or fielding phone calls as well, I will generally have that up on my phone or on my computer screen to reference. And I've been sending, I think I've been trying to send people there as well, because it's a really great resource to get all that information. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure this new school / repairs website will be a continuation of that as well. And then, again, it will be, incumbent upon all of us, sitting around this table to, proliferate the message and deliver as much information that we can so that the public feels equipped to make a decision when they get to the ballot in March. Because, these are important decisions, and having as much information as possible to make that decision is certainly important. So appreciate the work that you guys are doing towards that. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, just one follow-up there is, we did give Austin direction on working with Cliff on getting the website up, because we have quite a few artifacts that can already live there at this point with all of the exhaustive reports that we've got. And I think it's just, once we have it there, we can start to kind of build it out, but one-stop shop will be very helpful. Sometimes it's, tricky to navigate certain committees and find certain things. The other piece is LaValle, and he did share with us at the facilities workshop that LaValle, in addition to the 2 times he'll present to the board, there'll be 3 information sessions for the community. So we, as a committee, as a board, can kind of hash out the best way to utilize that resource. I mean, Jay being the subject matter expert for, the design and sort of the promotion of the package and the plan, but more to come on that. I think, as we kind of work through the process with him, we'll ask him next week sort of how they've approached it in other towns, and then what is the best fit for us here in Derry, right? Where do we see the most engagement from the community, and how can he reach the most people with his message and with his presentations, and really leverage those 3 visits so people can, have all the information they need. They can see it. I think, I'm as excited as anybody else to finally see renderings and classrooms and see, what a 3D model would look like versus, a normal 2-dimension kind of above floor plan. So, but that'll be big, and we can certainly work through. And obviously, we want feedback from everybody. Where you'd like to see it, where does it make sense? Afternoons, evenings, the timing of things. So I think it makes sense to have everybody kind of share what their thoughts are around how to have Jay help us work through the process.
All right, thanks. Anyone else have any comments, questions, feedback regarding any of the facilities? All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. We'll invite Cliff up to talk about the district website and some of the selection, I guess, or the potential changes that we have. Thank you, Cliff.
Back in, what was it, August, the board revealed their goals for the year, and one of them is to revise the website to make it more user-friendly and just be able to find things, I think, is more the thing. In digging into that, we found that our tool that we use is a little bit inadequate when it comes to trying to make things user-friendly. In order to be able to put things prominently on the website, which we hear almost every week, we want this on a prominent place on the website, we're stuck with very limited options based on the tool that we have. So it was my recommendation that we go out and look for something different. The reason we have the tool that we have, Google Sites, is because it's free. We have yet to pay for a website in Derry. Tracy Graham built the first website with HTML code, and she has been managing that website. She's upgraded it from from HTML to old Google Sites to new Google Sites, but we have not really paid for any kind of platform. It's a homespun website that's been a repository for information. So that being said, I went out a couple of months ago and started looking at all of the, as I brought to you the last time that I came to the board for this, I looked at around 30 districts in southern New Hampshire to see all the companies that they were using, and I brought to you the grid of all those and I started looking at demos and getting pricing for them, and there was about 12 companies that I did. And from that, I narrowed it down to 4 different companies. Now the price, let me move forward on this. The price ranging was free Google Sites to up to $35,000 for the first year. I narrowed this down to 4 companies that fell in the mid-range of pricing. I know that Kearney had said something about maybe a low, middle, and high, but I've worked in Derry long enough to know that we don't really want the high. And we've worked with the low for a long time, and I don't want that either. So I went with 4 in the middle that there's a variation in the pricing, but each one of those comes with pluses and minuses to them. So I asked Tracy Graham to sit with me through demos of the 4 that I had selected, and we had 5 attributes that we were looking for. The first and foremost are their ADA compliance tools. The last thing we want is a website that is cited for ADA violations, because they will make our life miserable. The Office of Civil Rights of the federal government will totally take over your website and put you through training, and we don't want to have to do all that. We wanted subscription options for updates on some of the pages, their ability to do that. We wanted to know how they integrated with our Google Docs, our calendars, our single sign-on, because we are heavily invested into the Google sphere of things, and it makes our life much easier if we don't have to move all of our documents to another platform that we can tie right into our Google Docs. Not to mention our calendars, we want to be able to display those just as they are without any retraining. Menu options. The flexible menu options is a big deal, and I'm going to show you this in just a moment, because that's where we get this idea of prominent location on the website without it looking cluttered. And that's a big deal. So right now in Google Sites, we have 1 option for menus. It's at the top. It's those drop-down menus, and it can only go up there. And so what I was looking for are there companies that have menu options that can be placed anywhere, that they're floating, that they do lots of different things. And so that was something we were looking for. And then finally, the ability to schedule posts in advance that come up on the day that we want them to, and they expire when the event is over. So those were the 5 things that we considered out of all of these. And from that, we narrowed it down to 2 companies that we want to bring to you. We have one that we are strongly in favor of, but we brought you a second one in case we don't get it, just like you mentioned. Somebody mentioned that just a couple of minutes ago. It's my fail-safe option. The 2 companies that we are bringing to you tonight are Final Site, which is used by Nashua, Merrimack, and there's another sample I'm going to show you, and then School Now, which is used by Oyster River and Hudson. This is a screenshot of the Nashua front page of their website done by Final Site. What I want to bring your attention to, first of all, at the very top is a menu for different translations of the website. They employ Google Translations for this, and I think there's well over 100 different translations that can be had. In our district alone, we have 18 different languages that are spoken. I know that because I translated every one of our report cards into all of those languages last year. I do not speak 18 languages. I use Google Translate to do that. And then also there is the menu to get to the district home and the schools up at the top level. Then you have your main menu, which is very simple here with these 6 headers that'll drill down. This is just a screenshot. It's not interactive. I can't go to these things. But what I'm also impressed with down here are their quick find buttons. Now, I tried to do this with Google Sites, and it just didn't work for us. But you can see here, and then we have our social media menu over here that's also another floating menu. That's 4 different menus on the page, plus a beautiful graphic that can rotate through different pictures or videos, and yet the page does not look cluttered. And this is the landing area here. You do not have to scroll or anything. This is what you see as soon as you land on this page. In Merrimack, you see many of the same things here. Here's your select a school and translation, all in the same menu up here. You have your main menus over here, your floating, this is a floating quick find menu over here. So all of this, again, on the page as soon as you land on it. Now, there's more information like news stories and calendars down below that you can get to, but as far as navigating through this website, there are many options as soon as you land on the page. School Now also has some flexible menus, not quite as robust, but what you'll notice here, here's their translation and some of their other quick finds and their main menus, but you don't get everything as soon as you land on the page. You have to scroll down to be able to find their quick find menus, because this image here consumes a lot of the page. Now, let me say something about these images. One of the things that websites started for schools as just a repository of all the information, and it really didn't matter how it looked. But over the last 10, 15 years, branding has become an essential part of any school district in attracting the right kinds of people to be employed by your district, and for families that are moving into the district. The way your website looks is a direct reflection on people's perception of how this district operates. And so that's where these big pictures are coming from, is in the branding. You'll notice on every one of these, the logo is prominently displayed up in the top, and then there is pictures of student life here and staff life as well. So that's a huge part of it. This one, you can see up there, there's a little play and pause button. That's actually a video that you can embed in there. But like I said, you have to scroll down to get to these quick link menus over here. This is Hudson, very similar, a little bit. What I noticed, School Now templates were just a little bit more simplistic than what I was seeing out of Final Site. There seemed to be more options in Final Site. Again, I had to scroll down to get to those quick finds. So the pricing, of course, Final Site is going to be a little bit more expensive. The implementation, the first year for them is $11,000 as opposed to School Now, which is $2,793. The yearly hosting is almost the same, $7,300 per year, and that's based on the 6 schools. I did not price it for the 7 schools, because what we will do in this first year is link to our current school sites. There's no need for us to build 7 new school sites when we're going to change those schools next year. So we will have the 6 school sites, and we'll start building them as they're going to look next year. The Audio AI, the OCR compliance tool, this is a very high-end OCR compliance tool that Final Site utilizes. It's a third-party company that they monitor your site for any OCR violations. They fix it. You don't have to really do anything. If they see a violation, they go in, they take care of it. If you get audited by the federal government, you don't get audited, they get audited. It takes the school district liability completely out of the picture by going with Audio AI. Now, School Now has some very powerful OCR compliance tools and monitoring built into their 7225 pricing. I don't think they're as robust as what you get with Audio AI, but they are built into the price. One of the things that I wanted to, did I include it here? Oh, I want to go back here. I wanted to show you something about Final Site that really impressed me, and it's my recommendation that the board go with Final Site, because I really believe that this product here will give us the flexibility, the branding, and meet all of the check marks that we were looking for and that what you're looking for. But one more thing that I wanted to show you was this employment sample. They worked with a district who was really trying to, there it is. They were trying to beef up their recruitment efforts to get new staff. And so they wanted a very dynamic web page that was going to do that. So they created this graphic, they created the little logo here, and then everything on here, they worked with the district to be able to put this out in a very easy to see, easy to get information about every single job that they had here, how to apply for the positions. it wasn't just a link to their AppleTrack, but it was the full package of why should we work for this district here. And these are people who think about this stuff every day, as opposed to us who are charged with just putting together a website, and I asked ChatGPT how it should look, you know. And so anyway, I wanted to show you that really impressed me in itself, the look of this page. This is a live page from the it's a Texas district, yeah, Clear Creek Independent School District in Texas. Anyway, I put this to the board. Tracy and I would love to see Final Site as our product to move forward with, but we are happy with School Now. We believe it will also check all the boxes as well for a little less price. But again, the choice is yours as to what you want to do. Or you can say, yeah, that's too much. Let's just do what we can with, take all these ideas and see if you can do your best with Google Sites for free. So.
All right, thank you, Cliff, for that presentation. A lot of great information. I'll open it up to the board for any questions, comments, feedback.
I had 2 questions.
Sure.
Obviously, the price difference is somewhat significant. You know, what do you feel that Final Site gives you that makes that price difference worth it? And my second question was, did you speak to any of your counterparts at the other area districts that use each company and kind of get a sense for how they feel about who they're working with?
I'm glad you asked that, because that was actually in my head to put in the presentation. I just didn't say that. I'm going to answer the second question first. Yes, I did. As many of you know, I'm a member of the New Hampshire Chief Technology Officers Council in the state of New Hampshire. I was president of that group for 2 years. And last month at our meeting, I brought this very thing up because I'd already asked people through our email group that we have. I forget, our listserv, yes, the listserv. You have to excuse me, I just got back into town this afternoon at noon. My mother was in the hospital this week. I flew to Missouri over the weekend, and I'm a little fuzzy. Anyway, I asked them. A lot of them are going to a company that I ruled out because it was way too expensive, Aptigee. It's what Manchester uses. Hampstead is going there, I think. Exeter is looking at Aptigee. One of their main things is to develop a parallel mobile app and I've worked with these mobile apps before, and they're really nice, and they have all the links to like Power School and Parent Square and things like that. Our Parent Square kind of serves that function. It doesn't have the links to everything, but all your communication happens in the Parent Square app already, and it would be kind of replicating that. So Aptigee was also very expensive. They did all these things, but their big thing was that app too. So that was one of their, my colleagues, they were going with Aptigee, but the people with School Now and the people with Final Site both were very positive about it. Oyster River, they use School Now, and their tech director is the director of the year for the state, and I value his opinion on just about everything, and he really likes it over there. Nashua, I personally just love the look of that. When Tracy looked at that, when she said, look at all the information you get right there by looking at that, and it's not cluttered. It doesn't look cluttered at all. It may have a lot of information, but it doesn't look like it's just hitting you all in the face. So that was, what do you get from Final Site that you don't? One of the biggest prices in there is that AudioEye, which is the huge, robust OCR compliance tool. That's not to say that the one in School Now isn't good as well, but it's just better. I think that the demonstration they did for that, helping them with getting those branded sites and like that employment site, it's their service that they put a lot more into it than they'll work with you one-on-one, and I think that's the difference in their pricing structure.
I just have a quick question. Do you feel like we could design our way out of that with the new school, like just play around with the design so that we can equally get as many tabs, or are you saying that you can specifically get more tabs and more information on the Final Site than you can on School Now, or is it just as simple as kind of redesigning into the look that you liked in Nashua without having to spend $10,000 more?
The menu capabilities in School Now they're adequate. They would do the job for us. There's no need to rebuild it or do it. We can get more drop-down menus. They will do everything. One of the things I didn't like is that you had to scroll down. It's in a template. We cannot redesign their template, and they have a limited amount of templates. I think there was only 6, whereas I think Final Site had dozens of templates.
You
that
still feel like you can get everything that we need to say on those tabs?
Yes,
Okay.
we would see you. School Now is highly rated. I wouldn't bring it to you if I didn't believe that we could do everything that we need to do with School Now. You know, that's why they're both up there. I ruled out the ones. Parent Square was one of the 4 finalists, and they just did not fit the bill. They did not have what we were looking for.
So would you say that, this is always so loud, would you say that Job Hub was the main deciding factor between Final Site and School Now, of that being able to have a whole almost website for hiring?
Tracy Graham, most of you know that her husband is the district's lawyer, and one of his main things that he works with is OCR compliance. So that's a huge deal for her. What sold her on Final Site was the AudioEye tool. She was very impressed with the OCR compliance from Final Site, as she was impressed with School Now, but more impressed with Final Site. And so that was the biggest thing. What my biggest thing was that you did not need to scroll down to see all of the important links that you need to get to the rest of the site with the templates that were offered by Final Site. So those were, I mean, Jane knows, it pains me to suggest something that costs more to purchase. I am the cost-cutting guy in the technology department, and so when I put something out there that costs more than the other, it's because I really believe that it would satisfy the needs of the district much better than the other tool.
So, first of all, Cliff, thank you. This is exactly what we had asked for last time, so appreciate all the legwork that you put into bring this to us. I want to go back to the OCR piece, and I think when you look at the difference in costs and maybe the protection, I don't know if that's the right word, is there a precedent out there where maybe that initial, the larger year one investment and then the additional $5,000 subsequent year after, right? I know you only used the second year. But when I talk about like a return on investment, does that give us the protections to kind of hedge against any issues, like you had said with the state? You said Tracy was all in on that. I guess what I'm asking is, are we paying a little bit more, but that's going to safeguard a little bit better and prevent any potential issues that could be monetary in the future, or fines or things like that? Does that kind of add additional guardrails that maybe is worth that investment?
Tracy thought so. Like I said, both of these tools both of these platforms have very adequate tools. I know that the one at School Now, what I saw from them, they also monitor and they also fix, but I don't think they did it as frequently or as well. I did not hear from their presentation that they will be the ones that that any kind of audit or complaint goes to. It would still be the district with School Now, whereas with the AudioEye, they take full responsibility. And I don't know if any of you knew, but Claremont School District about 8 years ago went through an OCR violation suit, and it was hell for them. It was just totally what it took for them to dig out, because there are groups out in the country that are scouring school websites looking for things that are violations of ADA compliance. That, as if they didn't have anything better to do, that's what they're doing. And they're reporting these school districts to the Office of Civil Rights. It's an active, it's almost like human bots out there that are actually looking to exploit these things. And Claremont was the victim of one of those groups about 8 years ago. So all of our districts have gone very hyper-vigilant on trying to be as OCR compliant as we can be. And for Tracy, that's why we haven't had a lot of images on there, because trying to make sure that the images that we have are OCR compliant, that's one of the hardest things. You have to make sure there's alt text so that whenever you scroll over it, a screen reader will tell you what this picture is talking about. You also have to make sure the contrast of your text and the background colors is readable by anybody. If you've got any sound issues, that there's closed captioning in there. There's a lot of different factors that are involved with OCR compliance. Without the audio eye, if we didn't get the audio eye, we would not recommend Final Sight. That was one of the things. Their built-in tools were not robust enough for us to recommend that. We would only recommend Final Sight with the audio eye. School Now has it all, just not as robust as what audio eye, and does not appear to accept the responsibility.
Thank you.
Everything you said, I totally agree with Cliff. I think that if anyone remembers, when we talked about this in its infancy, I had mentioned another district, and I said, I went to that website and I wanted, even if I wasn't looking for something specific, I just wanted to read that website. I'm thoroughly familiar with our website, but if I'm in a hurry, I still have a hard time bouncing around with it sometimes. And I think that we have to look at why this exists, and it exists as a vehicle for communication with so many people, with every parent, with people who want to engage with the district in terms of volunteering, with all of our staff and faculty. This is the go-to place to get the information. The other thing is that, and Cliff mentioned this, that, it's the one thing that we hear from people, I can't find it. It's concealed, it's difficult to find. Where is it? I didn't know it was at that place or whatever. I think the Final Site is the way to go. I think that, when we look at the difference in price, the difference in price is twice as much or thereabouts. Not after the first year, but I think that, if you want to use the old chestnut that you get what you pay for, you can go back to the site that we have right now, and we're paying nothing for it. Do we want to look at a site that eventually we go, you know what, we could have had the other one. We could have had the other site, the Final Site, and boy, I'll tell you, that would have knocked the socks off this whole thing. I'd say that right now, we listen to what Cliff said. I have full confidence in what he recommends. And furthermore, I think that it offers so much more to so many different people. So I would definitely advocate for the Final Site.
The reason I'm scrolling around here is I looked on this. This is a huge district here, but you were mentioning, Paul, the part about finding us, and it may not be on this site, but one of the sites that I looked at had an A to Z directory that when you pull it up, it has all of your pages that you have on your site in an A to Z directory. It's making it much easier. It's a topical search rather than just going to the search engine and typing in a word. It's like a directory. So that one, I did not remember seeing that in the School Now site, but I do remember seeing it in the final site. Like I said, this one, yeah, this is a huge district these are Texas schools, so yeah, they're gonna be, all of them have searches. Now this one too, the school sites are sub-sites of the district site. They're not independent sites like what we have now. And that's important because when you start searching for something and it's buried on a school site and you're at the district site, you'll